Hey guys, this is Chris. I'm coming at you today with the top 10 things that I don't like about the Mavic Mini. I do like a lot about this drone. It is a good little drone for what it is. But I like to tell people the full truth and nothing but the truth and get in there and let you guys know what features could have been included on this guy that weren't. So stay tuned. I'll be right back. Hey guys, I'm going to interrupt for a second. Filmed a couple days after my original take. I've been hearing a lot of complaints about the range of the Mavic Mini. So went out and we just tested it. So we tested it against a ton of drones, 7 drones total we tested, and sure enough, it does not match what you would expect from, for example, the Mavic 2. Mavic Mini isn't there, but we wouldn't expect it to be. But how does it compare against the Spark? How does it compare against the Mavic Air, which is a much more expensive drone? How does it compare against the Anafi, the Evo? We did a bunch. Now, I'm not going to spoil all the results. Jack is going to put together a video there, but moral of the story is it met my expectations, which means it pretty much matched the DJI Spark and the DJI Mavic Air. Now, it's supposed to match the Mavic Air, but people have been having some complaints, so we tested it in a Wi-Fi noisy environment, my neighborhood here. And as I said, the results matched what I thought. I didn't think it was that big of a deal. It's not perfect, of course, love it to be better, but I'm not going to put it on my list of major flaws because it really just matches the other lower cost drones from DJI. Now, if you want to see what competitive drone it actually beat, you got to check out Jack's video. It should be rolling out in a couple days. Now back to my top 10 or bottom 10. So let me get ahead of all of the comments. I know you guys are going to call me a whiner. That's fine. I'm cool with it. I do like to mention the things I don't like about products as well as those things I do like. I was not provided this drone for free. Many of the reviewers you see out there were given free drones, so you don't always get the full truth about the products you see in online reviews. So here I am. I know DJI isn't going to not send me one next time because of this video, so I'm going to go and tell all my thoughts on it. So first up, 4K. There's no 4K. Not a huge deal for me. The 2.7K is more than enough for me, really. But I know a lot of people do like the 4K. They said that it's an overheating problem. I don't know if that makes any sense. I mean, there's some rather large fans here. There's a lot of ventilation on the bottom. Now, what I don't know is how much image processing is done right on the camera. And definitely there is less surface area than there are on other DJI drones. They put a little metal heat sink on the back, so this whole camera body is not plastic. There's some metal there, there's some little fins. They're trying to get heat out. And maybe there's something to that. Maybe there really is a limitation. But 4K would have been nice. Not a deal breaker for me, but I know that's going to be the #1 item on a lot of people's lists for things they would have liked to see on the Mavic Mini. Next up, it just feels super fragile. So more so than any other drone, I mean, this thing just bends. A lot of foam-like parts right here. Like stickers are kind of like holding this thing together sometimes, what it feels like. Now, it's a major departure from previous products. I mean, this Spark, I pick it up, it feels like a total brick compared to this. And these arms, I mean, they're these like U-beams, these structural beams, and you cannot twist these. Maybe the methodology here was make it super strong. I don't actually know if this will break more easily or not, the Mavic Mini, because it's more flexible and it's lighter. It may do just as well as the Spark. Jack did crash the Spark once, and it did survive. I think it fell maybe 15 feet after hitting a tree branch into the grass, and did survive. So we have one data point there. I think some other people did some stuff that showed it is a brick, or it survives like a rock. Not sure yet about the Mini, but it sure does feel flimsy. You're going to feel like you're handling a toy more than a professional product here. Okay, another one on a lot of people's lists is obstacle avoidance. I don't actually mind that much. I think forward obstacle avoidance is a little overrated unless you're doing active track, which we'll get to that in a minute. I wish they would have maybe left off the fake optical sensors there. They're really trying to follow the style of previous Mavics. But no obstacle avoidance at all, so that is a big departure, and that may be a deal breaker for some people. I flew it in a real estate job the other day. Actually, it was actually a big relief not having the thing beeping at me all the time when there are really no obstacles anywhere near it. So for some people that's going to be an issue. Not a huge deal for me, but it definitely is a feature that's missing. How about these floppy props? Now, that doesn't matter for flight, but when you go and fold this thing up and try to get it in the case, it's just kind of a pain. So you have to kind of tuck the props in, and then they start flopping all over the place anyway. I mean, they're just going all over, and it's kind of a pain. It would have been nice if they could have had a little more friction in them like they've historically had on all the other drones that had removable props. But, you know, I just find it a little obnoxious. I don't know if they didn't know if those motors were going to be strong enough to actually get the props out all the way if they weren't super floppy. I don't know. But there's that. And they're not removable. And that might be a big issue with some people. So the props, that's number 4. I mentioned no point of interest, and that is a deal for me. So a point of interest is one of the more useful flight modes. It's been there on DJI products since the original Phantom drones. Sets a GPS location for the drone to circle around. Super simple. There's no reason they couldn't have included it. The only other drone I've seen them leave this feature out on is the Spark. Didn't understand it there. Don't understand it here either. I think they're just trying to make things simpler. They do give you the circle mode, which is similar, but it ultimately isn't as useful in my mind. So the next several items are all about the software limitations as well. Don't mind her. The next one up is Active Track. This is the first DJI drone I've seen that didn't have Active Track. I was really surprised to see them leave that out. I don't know why you wouldn't include it. They do have the Vision software in there to be able to track things. That's how circle mode, that's how Helix works. You know, they left that out. Maybe it's because it doesn't have the forward obstacle avoidance. They just wanted people to not crash their drone by walking their drone into things while it was following them. So I kind of understand why they left it out, but it's a really nice mode to have for some complex movements where you're not restricted to being fixed to a circle or a helix. But, you know, not a huge fan that they left that out. So the next one is for those video pros out there. If you care about your frame rate or your exposure time specifically of your videos, you can stick an ND filter on here, presumably. There might become one available. But are you going to know that you have the shutter speed that you're looking for? And typically that should be about half of the frame rate. So if you're filming at 30 frames per second, it would be 1/60th of a second. And that's going to get you a little bit of motion blur and a little less choppy action in your video. So you don't have any visibility to that. I'm thinking DJI figures that the average consumer isn't going to be worried about that. And honestly, it is very difficult to get that just right, especially if you don't have an aperture to fine-tune the exposure. So that just might be an issue for some people who like to use ND filters or get their video just perfectly tuned in like that with ND filters. And as you can see here, I have tested a few ND filters. Another mode they took away was Asteroid. Now, why would you take that away? This is like the perfect drone for that. Why do I say the perfect drone for that? It's because it's geared towards consumers, not professionals. And, you know, it's just a fun little mode. I don't use it all that often, but you would think on a consumer-driven product, you'd throw that one in there. So onto the photos. There are no pano modes for this, so you can't automatically stitch together photos. You're going to have to do that manually if that's something you're interested in doing. So pay attention to where you're taking those pictures and take a bunch of pictures and stitch them after the fact manually, I guess, but there are no built-in pano modes here. That might be an issue for some people who want to get a wider field of view out of a photograph. More importantly to me is there's no auto exposure bracketing, no AEB, and no HDR options. So you're going to have to do that all manually. Now luckily you do have manual camera controls, and they're actually extremely easy to use. For photographs, you can play with the ISO and the exposure time. For video, you can do plus and minus an exposure value. For photographs specifically, as you can see here, I just took these 3 photos, manually changed the exposure, and stitched them together on the computer for an HDR image. So if you're doing a lot of sunrises, sunsets, stuff like that, HDR really comes in handy there, and you're going to have to do that manually after the fact. So those are the big ones. That's what I would have liked to see. I do have a couple more kind of nice to haves and just things you might want to be aware of about the Mavic Mini. So first up, this is the first DJI drone with no LEDs on the battery. Also the first lithium ion that I'm aware of. So not LiPo, not lithium polymer, lithium ion. Kind of an interesting move. I mean, these are like Tesla car batteries or something, which I would have thought would have been a little heavy for a drone, but it's what they went with. But if you're going to want to see how these things are charged up, you're going to need to drop it into the charging case. You can press this little power button to get a status. You can also put it in the drone. So that doesn't actually bother me that much. You're going to want to keep your batteries in this guy anyway. It's super handy, and not that big of a leap for me to have to just press a button to get a status there on the case instead of on the battery. Another smaller item is this wimpy little charger it came with. Now this is very Parrot-esque. The Parrot Anafi, for example, I can't even remember. I don't think it even came with a charger. So at least they gave us one here, but it's a little wimpy 5 volt 3 amp charger. So 3 amps, about as big as these get, but at the end of the day you're talking about 15 watts at 3 times 5 is 15. And what I thought was kind of cool is here's the charger for the Mavic Air. If they had given us something this beefy, you could actually charge all 3 batteries at the same time. So in maybe a little over an hour, you could have taken 3 batteries from 0 to fully charged instead of 1 at a time, which is you're doing with this dinky little guy. So kind of a missed opportunity almost. Now obviously they're trying to save some money. These things are kind of a commodity at this point, but they could have kept some room, and maybe it's possible, but they've got this little micro USB input here, so I'm not sure we're going to see an option to be able to upgrade to a better charger later. Would have been a really cool thing given how small the batteries are on the Mavic Mini to be able to charge all 3 at the same time. That would have been a unique feature to the Mini. But as we have seen time and time again on their lower cost drones, they're not all about adding features, they're more about cutting costs and actually artificially removing features, like arguably 4K video, for example. The last pet peeve is that they sent us with these cheesy white cords. White charger, white cords, and I got black and gray everything else. It just looks kind of corny and cheap. I'm guessing they got these pretty killer deal on these things. Again, a commodity item. White must have been 10 cents cheaper than black, but it just looks kind of corny having this really nice looking set of products here and then these cheesy white cables. These look cool when they're next to a white Phantom, but they look kind of silly in here. But that's more of a pet peeve. I'm definitely entering whiny mode here. That's everything. These would be the nice to haves, but really this is a pretty good little drone for the money. So thanks for watching. I hope you subscribe if you want to get some more cool information on these drones and others. Look for you next time. Thanks for watching.